Scheherazade Stories. Tonight's story is about watching and being watched. The message reached me 37 minutes after the satellite went dark. That was the first mistake. In Greenland, silence is never accidental. I was standing outside station NQ7, a research facility that officially didn't exist. The wind cut sideways across the ice, sharp enough to feel personal. The sky was a dull, endless grey, no horizon, no contrast, just frozen distance in every direction. Perfect cover. My phone vibrated once inside my glove. No signal bars, no carrier, no routing path that should have worked, yet the message was there. Protocol white silence initiated. Do not acknowledge, do not move. I stopped breathing. White silence was a contingency so deep it was barely spoken about, a last resort protocol used only when an operation had already failed and the fallout needed to be buried. Buried meant erased, and erased meant people. I looked back at the station, lights still on, generators humming, everything pretending to be normal. Inside, 6 people were working, climatologists, engineers, analysts, officially civilians. Unofficially, they were all listening to something they weren't supposed to hear. The satellite blackout had lasted 42 seconds, long enough to upload, long enough to leak, too short for coincidence. My earpiece crackled. Nothing came through. No voice, no static, just a faint tone, the kind you hear when a line is open but no one is on the other end. Someone was listening. I tapped my wrist console, forcing a diagnostic. Status, offline, comms compromised, location confirmed. Confirmed by who, it didn't say. I stepped away from the station slowly, boots crunching softly against the ice. In Greenland, sound travels in strange ways. You never know what's being carried with it. I reached the edge of the perimeter fence and stopped. My phone vibrated again. You shouldn't have come outside. My blood went cold. I hadn't acknowledged the first message. I hadn't replied. I hadn't done anything that should have triggered a response. Yet someone, or something, was watching me in real time. Identify, I said quietly, knowing full well no one was supposed to answer. The wind picked up. Then my phone buzzed again. We already did. You're not supposed to survive Phase 2. Phase 2. I closed my eyes for half a second. Phase 2 meant containment. Containment meant the truth had value, and value meant buyers. I turned back towards the station and saw it. A shadow moving behind the glass. Not one of the scientists, not dressed for the cold. Military posture, unmarked gear. They'd beaten me inside. I counted my breaths. If I ran, I'd be visible for kilometers. If I hid, the cold would kill me faster than any bullet. If I went back in, I'd be walking straight into the silence. The phone vibrated a third time. Last chance to cooperate. Cooperate with who? The agency that sent me, or the agency that wanted everything buried? I slipped the phone back into my pocket and made my decision. In Greenland, survival isn't about warmth or weapons. It's about choosing which silence you trust. I turned towards the station and walked back inside. The air inside station NQ7 felt wrong the moment I stepped through the door. Not warmer, not safer. Controlled. The kind of stillness you get when everyone is listening to something you can't hear. The main corridor lights flickered once, barely noticeable, then stabilized. Emergency systems had kicked in automatically after the satellite blackout, or at least that's what the status panel claimed. Systems, nominal. I didn't believe it. Dr. Hannah Voss stood near the operations desk, tablet pressed against her chest like a shield. Climate data scrolled across the wall behind her, ice density, pressure anomalies, subglacial movement. Useless noise. Her eyes met mine and something passed between us. Recognition, yes, but also calculation. "You shouldn't be out there," she said, calmly, too calmly. I had to check the array, satellite hiccup. She nodded once. 42 seconds, that's what they told us. They. Not it, not the system. They? I asked. Hannah hesitated, just a fraction of a second too long. Command, she said. Remote. I walked past her toward the control room, boots echoing softly on the metal floor. Every sound felt amplified, like the station itself was recording it. Inside, two of the engineers sat at their terminals, both too still. No casual movement, no whispered complaints. They were waiting. For what? I asked. One of them, Lars, glanced at Hannah before answering. For confirmation that we're still relevant. That word again. I checked the security feed. Cameras showed empty hallways, exterior angles, the ice field surrounding the station. No vehicles, no heat signatures. But one camera was offline. Camera 6B. Interior, storage level. Why is 6B dark? I asked. No one answered. I zoomed in on the timestamp. It had stopped updating exactly when the satellite went dark. That wasn't coincidence. I felt it then, that familiar tightening behind the ribs, the one that comes when an operation stops being yours. Who contacted you? I asked, quietly. Hannah stepped closer. They didn't identify themselves, she said. They didn't need to. Did they mention white silence? I asked. Her jaw clenched. Yes. That was enough. I reached into my jacket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small, matte black device no one else in the room recognized. A dead drop key. They're not here to protect you, I said. They're here to decide what disappears. The lights dimmed slightly. Then the station intercom crackled to life. No alert tone, no warning, just a voice. Station NQ7, this is Phase 2 oversight. I felt my blood run cold. Oversight. You have unauthorized personnel on site, the voice continued. You are instructed to remain where you are. Hannah looked at me, panic finally breaking through her control. They said you wouldn't make it inside, she whispered. Looks like they were wrong, I replied. The voice returned. Agent, and it used my real name. You are out of scope. Out of scope meant expendable. I stepped toward the console and disconnected the intercom feed manually. The room plunged into heavy silence. They know, Lars said quietly, about the signal. Not everything, I replied, or they'd already be shooting. I pulled up the data logs from the blackout window. There it was, a compressed transmission, not outbound, inbound. Someone had sent data to the station during the blackout, data that shouldn't exist. Hannah stared at the screen. That's not climate data, she said. No, I agreed, that's telemetry. The room went very quiet. You're not a research station, I continued. You're a relay. The truth settled in slowly, like frost. They hadn't been listening to the ice. They'd been listening through it. The station wasn't compromised. It was designed that way. My phone vibrated in my pocket. No signal, no carrier, just a single message. Phase 3 begins at local sunset. Evacuation not authorized. Sunset was 20 minutes away. I looked at Hannah, at Lars, at the others. Anyone who wants to live, I said calmly, needs to stop pretending this is about science. Outside, the wind howled harder, and somewhere beneath the ice, something answered back.
Sunset in Greenland isn't dramatic. It doesn't arrive with color or beauty. It simply removes what little definition the world still has. At 1742 local time, the horizon dissolved into gray, and the ice field outside station NQ7 became a flat, endless surface with no depth cues, perfect for hiding movement, perfect for losing people. I sealed the control room doors manually, old tech, mechanical, no network hooks. "Why do they care about sunset?" Hannah asked, her voice tight. "Because satellites change angles," I said, "and because whatever they're using works better in the dark." Lars swallowed. "You're saying they're coming?" "I'm saying they're already here," I replied. The targeting telemetry file finished decompressing. Coordinates, vectors, timings. It wasn't a strike plan, it was a handoff. "They sold the station," Hannah whispered. "Not sold," I corrected. "Traded." "For what?" "Access," I said, "to something under the ice." The floor vibrated faintly beneath our feet, just once. Then again. Seismic? No, too precise. I pulled up the subglacial scan archive, data the scientists had been collecting for years, believing it was climate research. Buried deep in the noise was a repeating anomaly, a structure, not natural, too symmetrical, too deliberate. "It's not a base," Lars said slowly. "It's a transmitter." "Or a receiver," I replied. The intercom crackled back to life, even though I'd disconnected it. That shouldn't have been possible. "Phase 3 confirmed," the voice said calmly. "Agent, you are instructed to disengage." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the station's internal personnel list. 7 people on site, but the access logs showed 8 active credential patterns. I felt a cold knot settle in my stomach. "Who's the 8th?" I asked. No one spoke. Hannah's eyes flicked toward the storage level. Camera 6B, offline. "I'm going down," I said. "That's suicide," Lars replied. "Staying here is worse." I grabbed a thermal rifle from the emergency locker, not lethal, but powerful enough to disable electronics and freeze muscle response. Then I headed for the stairwell. The temperature dropped with every level. Storage wasn't meant for people, just equipment, containers, long-term supplies, and someone breathing. I heard it before I saw them. Slow, controlled, too calm. "Don't come closer," a voice said from the shadows. I stopped. "Identify," I said. A figure stepped into the light. Unmarked suit, no insignia, no visible comms, but I recognized the posture immediately. Agency trained, same as me. "You're early," the figure said. "Who are you?" I asked. A pause. "Someone they couldn't erase, so they reassigned me." My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Override detected. Agent status contested." "You think you're dead," I said. "They think we both will be once the handoff completes." "What's under the ice?" I asked. The figure looked up, as if the ceiling wasn't there. "Proof," they said, "that the silence isn't empty." Another vibration rippled through the floor, stronger this time. "You have 10 minutes, the figure continued. "Then Phase 3 finishes, and everyone here becomes collateral." "Why tell me?" I asked. A thin smile. "Because you still think you have a choice." The lights flickered. Emergency power kicked in. Somewhere above us, the station groaned as if adjusting its weight. I made a decision. Not the careful kind, not the optimized kind, the kind you make when time is gone. "Show me," I said. The figure nodded once, and together we headed deeper into the station, towards something that had been waiting under the ice long before any of us arrived. The ice beneath station NQ7 wasn't solid. Not in the way people imagine ice. It was layered, pressurized, alive with tension built up over centuries. Every step downward felt like trespassing into something that preferred to stay buried. The elevator shouldn't have worked. Power was unstable, systems were fragmenting.
Yet when the other agent keyed in the override, the doors slid shut smoothly, as if this descent had been planned long ago. "How long have you known?" I asked as we moved down. "Longer than you," they replied. "Not long enough to stop it." The shaft lights flickered past in steady intervals. "We're not the first team here," the agent continued. "Just the first one they decided not to extract." "Why Greenland?" I asked. The agent didn't answer immediately. "Because it's quiet," they said finally, "and because everyone assumes nothing important happens here." The elevator slowed, stopped. The doors opened into a cavernous chamber carved directly into the ice. Not melted, cut. Precision work, old work. At the center stood a structure that didn't belong in any known inventory. Tall, narrow, black. A vertical array of unfamiliar material, humming softly, emitting a vibration you felt in your teeth more than your ears. "This is what they're afraid of?" I asked. "This is what they built," they corrected, "and then lost control of." I stepped closer. Data ports lined the base, not for input, for listening. I'd noticed it's not transmitting, it's receiving. "Yes," the agent replied, "from places we don't monitor anymore." My phone buzzed. No signal, no carrier, just text. Phase 4 initiated, containment window closing. "They're done pretending we're assets," I said. The agent nodded. White silence was never about hiding failures. It was about choosing who survives knowing the truth. The structure's hum deepened. The ice around us creaked. Then a voice filled the chamber, not through speakers, through resonance. "You are out of alignment," it said. My blood went cold. The agent raised his weapon, then lowered it slowly. "That's not a system. That's a response," the agent whispered. The voice continued. "You were never meant to hear us," it said calmly, "but you built mirrors and mistook them for tools." I felt the weight of it then. All the listening stations, all the surveillance, all the quiet data collection under the excuse of science. They hadn't been watching the world. The world had been answering back. "What happens now?" I asked. The voice paused. "Now you decide what silence means," it said. My phone vibrated again. Authorization revoked. Containment strike inbound. "They're going to collapse the chamber," the agent said. "Erase everything." "Not everything," I replied. I looked at the structure, at the cables, at the crude human attempts to cage something that clearly didn't need containment. "If we destroy it, they win," I said. "And if we don't," the agent asked, "what happens to the world?" I didn't have a clean answer, so I chose the only honest one. "We stop listening," I said. I reached for the manual disconnect. The agent hesitated, then nodded. Together, we severed the interface. The hum cut off instantly. The chamber went silent. No voice, no vibration, just ice. Above us, the station alarms wailed. The world shook as controlled detonations began collapsing the upper levels. The agent shoved me toward the emergency tunnel. "Go," they said. "What about you?" I asked. They smiled faintly. "Someone has to stay silent." I ran. Cold air tore at my lungs as the tunnel spat me out into the open ice. Behind me, station NQ7 folded inward, swallowed by snow and darkness. By the time rescue arrived, there was nothing left to investigate. Official reports called it a structural failure, an accident, a loss due to extreme conditions. White silence protocol was marked successful. Months later, I received one last message. No sender, no network, just text. "Silence is not empty. It is a choice." I deleted the message. Some things don't need to be answered. And in Greenland, the ice remembers everything, even what the world agrees to forget.